Episode 3. Shadows in the Dark. Jessica pushed the door to the house open, stepping into complete darkness. The silence was suffocating, a stark contrast to the buzzing thoughts in her mind. She fumbled for the light switch but hesitated when she heard her father's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. Jessica. His tone was cold, almost mechanical. She froze mid-step, her breath caught in her throat. The air seemed heavier, pressing against her chest. She braced herself, wondering if tonight would bring another confrontation. "Turn on the lights," he instructed, his voice devoid of warmth. "You'll trip over the chairs." Reluctantly, Jessica obeyed, the harsh, fluorescent light flooding the living room and revealing its sparse, worn-out furniture. The once-faded Christmas decorations still hung limply on the walls, a ghostly reminder of the season that had come and gone. She walked cautiously towards the dining area, where her father sat. The table was cluttered with an open Bible, a notebook, and a calculator. He was scribbling notes and flipping through pages, his focus split between calculating the church's December offerings and reviewing the expenses from the recent crossover crusade. Jessica greeted him softly, her voice trembling. "Good evening, sir." Her father acknowledged her with a slight nod but didn't look up. Just as she turned to head to her room, his voice stopped her in her tracks. "Come back here, Jessica." Her heart raced as she turned around. She clenched her fists to stop her hands from shaking. "Where did you go today?" he asked without lifting his gaze from the notebook. Jessica took a deep breath. "I went to the Skill Acquisition Center, sir. I got accepted to learn fashion designing while waiting for my exams." Her father finally looked up, his sharp eyes piercing through her. "I hope this will not interfere with your studies. If you fail those exams, Jessica." He left the threat hanging in the air, his meaning clear. "I promise it won't, sir," she stammered. "I will pass my exams with flying colours." Her father stared at her for a moment longer, his expression unreadable, then returned to his calculations. Jessica turned quickly, eager to escape the suffocating atmosphere. She moved quietly down the hallway to her room, feeling the familiar sting of fear in her chest. Her thoughts wandered as she closed the door behind her. Memories of past confrontations flashed vividly in her mind, the time she dared to question why her father beat her mother. The aftermath was unforgettable, bruises, cuts, and pain that lingered for weeks. That day taught her to tread carefully, but it didn't extinguish the fire of her resolve. Jessica undressed and tied a wrapper loosely around herself. She sat on her bed, her hands resting on her worn textbooks. The room was silent except for the distant hum of a generator outside. Her siblings weren't back from their holiday at Grandma's, leaving her alone in the house. "Oh, what I would give to leave this house," she muttered to herself, staring at the ceiling. But there was no time for self-pity. Jessica flipped open her books and began studying. The words on the pages blurred as exhaustion tugged at her, but she fought to stay focused. Her dreams of freedom, her mother's safety, and her sister's futures depended on her success. Suddenly, the sound of a door creaking open startled her. She froze, her pen hovering above the page. From her room, she could hear faint footsteps in the hallway. Her heart pounded as she strained to listen. The footsteps stopped right outside her door. "Jessica!" her father's voice called, low and almost eerie. She didn't respond immediately, her mind racing. Why was he standing outside her room this late? "Jessica," he repeated, his tone more insistent. She closed her book, her breath caught in her throat, and cautiously stood up. Her hand hovered over the doorknob, unsure of what awaited her on the other side.